I'm sure you've heard the news. Americans are leaving the country in record numbers. But what's really pushing people out? Let's talk real stories, not just statistics.
I don't know why no one's talking about this, but there is a mass exodus of US citizens from the United States.
Why are so many Americans moving out of America? There have been an increased amount of people choosing to live outside America. Why is that? Why is it so many people are choosing to live outside America? So I'm going to show you a few videos of people that came online to explain why they're moving out of America and choosing to start a whole new life in some other country.
One is the growing tension and division in the United States. Everybody in the United States seems to be on edge about something. To me, it seems like everyone is like a ticking time bomb just waiting to explode. It also feels like everybody's just looking to be offended by something. You can't say anything, you can't do anything because somebody out there is looking to get offended. And I'll take it a step further. The political tension and division also has gotten out of hand. We look at everybody over there as either you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, which is dumb. I don't know how we got so invested in these political parties that we'll damage relationships with long-term friends, families, jobs, and all this stuff, man. It is just crazy. I remember the time we used to debate who was better, Tupac or Biggie, LeBron or Jordan, McDonald's or Burger King, ham or burger, peanut butter or jelly, the Jetsons or the Flintstones. And now we won't do none of that no more. We're debating about politics, man. I don't have time for that, man. And not saying people are not into politics here, because they are, but not to the point, at least in my experience, to the point where they'll destroy their family. They won't talk to their kids, they won't talk to their husband, they'll get divorced. Not to that point. I hadn't seen it here. So that's number one. Number two is the high cost of living. The cost of living in the United States has just gotten bad, way, way bad. Before I moved here, I was living in Fort Lauderdale, and I was paying about $2,400 a month for a 2-bedroom and 2-bath apartment. When I moved here, I was able to cut that in half on my accommodations. But here's the kicker. The $2,400 covers all my overhead just living here. So what I was paying in Fort Lauderdale, $2,400 just on rent, that covers everything here in Santo Domingo. And of course it doesn't cover my entertainment, me going out to eat or going out to get a cigar, or even going out for drinks, but it covers all my overhead. And that's still a little bit less than $2,400. It's really around $2,200, $2,300 per month. So the cost of living, as you can see, was a factor. So let's move on to number 3, the continuous rat race of the 9 to 5. Yes, now I understand not everybody can quit their job and move abroad and live in another country. And you know what? I didn't think I could either. But when I started focusing on it and putting a plan together and really dialing in on what I wanted, things started to happen for me where I was able to do it. So I had to get out of that system. I just could no longer stand that system. So now I work for myself. I was able to buy back a lot of my time to focus on some of the things that I like to do the most. And the last one is the senseless and random gun violence. Yes, the United States has gotten really dangerous over the last decade or so, where the violence just has gotten to a point where a lot of people, they are desensitized to it now. It's like when there's a mass shooting, it's like, oh, that's another one. And then the next day is business as usual, and I have a daughter. And the last thing I was going to do was put my daughter in a public school in the United States and have me as a parent worried about whether she gonna come home. No, that wasn't gonna happen. And even for myself, I didn't want to be at a grocery store or at a mall or something, and some fool comes in because he's mad, poor little Johnny. I don't have time for that. And I know somebody's gonna say, but there's crime in DR. I know it is. Of course there's crime in DR. There's crime everywhere. I mean, I haven't heard of any mass shootings anywhere. I haven't heard anybody running up in a school. or anything like that. I mean, if you have, then let me know. I haven't heard of that. You know, I don't feel threatened when I go to the grocery store that somebody's going to come and shoot it up. I don't feel threatened if I'm inside a church, somebody's going to shoot the church up. I don't feel threatened when I'm at a restaurant, somebody's just going to walk up and just start killing everybody. I don't feel threatened like that here. So don't try to compare the crime here to the crime in the United States. It's not comparable, period. I don't care what you say. So don't try to convince me otherwise. So anyway, so those are some of the reasons why I decided to leave the United States and move to the Dominican Republic.
I just moved to Mexico, like for real, moved to Mexico. And honestly, I don't know when I'm coming back. The goal for 2026 for me is to spend more time outside of the United States than inside of the United States. If you want to go live in another country, United States is the best thing in the world. Like, why would you want to move away from that? The more time I go outside of the United States, I've been to 3 different countries and have been to multiple cities within those countries. The more I realize when I go outside of the United States, how cooked the United States is.
The price of basic survival in America is a subscription to debt. The United States didn't accidentally trap people financially. It built an economy where having debt is the norm. Housing, education, transportation, healthcare, even groceries and takeout are now being financed through Klarna and Affirm. This isn't normal consumer behavior. This is a mandatory subscription model for survival. You pay monthly just to exist. And if you miss a payment, the penalties kick in with fees, interest, damaged credit, and you start to lose access to things. This is not because you've made bad choices. It's because the entire system turned basic survival into something that has to be financed, and often at a 29% interest rate. This is like the ultimate abusive relationship. The system hooks you in, normalizes the bad behavior for years, and convinces you that this is just how everyone lives. And when you try to opt out by leaving, you're the one who seems crazy.
Well, let me first start off by saying no place is perfect, right? And some people like strawberry, some people like vanilla, some people like chocolate. And I think it's okay to have your own preferences. And the same applies whenever we're talking about a country. So I was born and raised here in the United States, so I am American. I am Latino, but I'm American first. I love this country. This is what I know. This is where I grew up. And it is, in fact, the land of opportunity for many. And if you apply yourself, you can go ahead and become something, you know, and you can achieve great things here in this country. And we're very lucky to be here, every single one of us, no matter if you were, you know, if you've been here for generations or if you just came here last week. I think that we should all be grateful to live in this country. Now, I am very lucky to be able to travel wherever I want, and I want to travel the whole continent of America. And in doing so, I'm able to compare, you know, how people live over there versus how they are over here, you know, how people think, how people behave, the economy, health, so on and so forth. And like I said before, if you like living here in the U.S., by all means, you know, be happy here. But I think that also if you're happy somewhere else, I think it's okay to go somewhere else. But now I'm going to answer that question. Why am I leaving? Why am I not happy here? Why do I want to go somewhere else? And I'm just going to go through the bullet points without explaining a lot of things. If you have any questions, let me know, man. The number one obvious thing is the cost of living, right? And it's all relative because they make a lot less money, so they spend a lot less, and I make a lot more money over here in the U.S. So for me, the exchange rate is going to be very favorable, right? And now you might say, well, you know, but what are you going to do for money over there? Well, I've thought about that. That's why I'm investing, and things like that are going to give me cash flow and stuff like that. So that's covered right there. The other one is health. People here in the U.S. are incredibly unhealthy, especially truck drivers. I mean, you look at truck drivers, they're mostly fat, right? They're overweight. More often than not, they have different vices like smoking cigarettes and stuff like that. They're just very unhealthy people. So in other countries, you tend to walk a little bit more, you know, there's more public transportation, stuff like that. You interact also more with people because of that. So people tend to be a little nicer, you know, they're a little bit more open. When somebody comes in the elevator, you make some small talk, and people ask you how you are, people say God bless you, and I like all of those things, you know. When you go to your bakery, the guy knows your name after a while. So hey, how's your life, you know, how's the gym going, how's this and that, and that, how's the wife, so on and so forth. Things that you don't really get here in the USA. You do get them in some small towns, but they're often very, very segregated, and also the quality of life is just not the same. For example, people in other countries are very lively. They party for anything. They like to dance and they like to get together. And here in the US, we're so stressed out, and we're so stressed about being individuals versus just being a community, that we don't even get time or the luxury of spending time with each other, right? We're always in our jobs. You know, in order for you to see your friends, you have to make an appointment with them, sometimes months in advance. And sometimes you can't even get that to happen because people are just so busy just trying to survive here in the US. And in other countries, I'm not saying that they're living a lot better economically, but they always find time to go ahead and share a coffee and do all of these things. And then at the end, they just end up being happier people. Happier people that walk more, that do more exercise, and that eat healthier. And let's talk about healthcare now. The cost of healthcare here in this country is absolutely pathetic. I do not have healthcare here. You know what my healthcare is? Taking care of myself and going to the gym. And whenever I need to get something done, I go to another country and get it done over there. I just did a whole bunch of tests in Colombia, and it cost me $100 and something, something that would have cost me maybe $500 or $800 here in the States. And also the quality of the service is a lot better in South America. The doctors actually care about you. It's like I said, it's a lot cheaper. I mean, you can get a private plan from hundreds or maybe $200 a month. I mean, here in the United States, you spend thousands of dollars a month, and the doctors literally don't give a shit about you. They don't care if you live or die. They don't give you any. They don't care to explain what's going on with you and your body. But that's not the case somewhere else. So that's why I always urge people: you need to travel. You need to see what's out there, because sure, you might like the taste of vanilla, right? But you're not going to know if you like chocolate or strawberry or caramel or other flavors if you never try them. And that happens a lot with the US. We have a lot of propaganda, and that's why we have a lot of people saying this is the best country in the world, and if you don't like it, you can leave. And you know what? If you believe that, or anybody believes that, you're just brainwashed, because we're not the best in a lot of things, and people are a lot happier in some other places. And I've been so lucky to be able to experience that, and I want to have that in my life. And that's okay. And if somebody has traveled and has seen everything that there is to see out there and still chooses to live here, that's okay too. But you can't say that this place is better until you have experienced something.
Another reason why a lot of Americans are ditching the US and moving to Asia is the peace of mind and the lifestyle differences. We didn't just move here for price differences, we moved here for peace. Back home in the States, we felt like we were always in survival mode, and a girl is tired, I'm exhausted. Here we feel safe, supported, and that we finally have space to breathe. There's such a strong sense of community here. People greet you, they smile, and they genuinely care. It's hard to put a price tag on that type of energy.
My husband and I were sitting on the porch this morning, and we were just discussing the culture in the United States and how there's always this undercurrent of violence and hostility, and it's everywhere all the time, and you feel very vulnerable to it. And sometimes you don't really even know you're feeling it, but it's there. And I asked him, when you go to a movie theater, do you assess who's in the room and who might be a threat and who might be hiding something in their coat, and what you would do if they just stood up and started shooting? How are you going to get out of the room? How are you going to keep our boys safe? And he's like, yeah, I do. And I said, I do too. We never talked about that openly. And we both agreed, we do it all the time. We're at the grocery store, at a concert, at church, at our kids' school. What if who among these people is a threat? And what would we do if they stood up and started to do something? How would we get out of here? How would we protect our kids and ourselves? That is always in our minds. And I don't think we realize the mental toll and the physical toll that takes on us to always be doing those mental calculations. And then not only that, but the culture in the US is such that you're always feeling like someone is trying to get one over on you or use you somehow. There's always this sense of you're competing. You're not helping each other. You're not supporting each other. You're competing with each other. And that person he's your enemy. He's your neighbor, but he's also your enemy. You try to make sure that he doesn't mow on your side of the lawn too much, because that's yours. That's your property. He's trying to take it from you. There's this sense of like, it's real like selfishness and self-centeredness, and gotta get mine and keep mine and not let anyone else take mine. And I'm really looking forward not to feel that all the time. I don't think we realize that we're feeling it. We're not conscious of it all the time, but I really want to not feel it, you know? And I want to raise my sons not to think that way or have those sort of feelings or have to do those calculations in their head about like, how am I gonna get out of this without getting shot? That's what I want. So that's why I am taking my two sons, who are 7 and 9, and my husband and myself to the other side of the world to get away from this place.
I go to Italy and I'm like, oh my God, I could eat pizza and gelato every single day and I lose weight and feel great.
This is yet another reason why I left the US indefinitely to live in Bali. Because the US is poisoning us through our food and they don't give a fuck. Every single time I travel to a new destination and eat the exact same foods that I would eat in the US, I lose weight. And before you guys say, well, Andrea, it's because you're hiking volcanoes and you're surfing and you're being really active. No, I do the same thing in the US. I'm very active. I go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week, but yet I still seem to struggle with my weight, with getting my PCOS, lupus, and hypothyroidism under control. I can eat bread anywhere around the world and not be inflamed because of the gluten. Whereas when I eat the exact same thing in the US, my face is all puffy and I start to gain weight. I'll give you an example. Red 40 is banned all throughout Europe. However, they put it in our cereals, our makeup, anything that is red, our fruit punch. According to the FDA in America, Red 40 is safe for public consumption. However, in Europe, it is banned because it leads to stomach problems, attention problems, ADD, a multitude of other health issues. But I want to hear from...
Do I need to flee the country? But then I'm like, but if I flee the country, where am I going to go? Because fascism is on the rise in Europe too. And then I'm like, my ancestors survived here and they made it work. But then I'm like, but the ancestors wanted better for me and they didn't have a choice but to stay, but I might have resources to leave. And then I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe they will want me to leave. And then I'm like, do I have the money to leave? And I'm like, I certainly don't have the energy to fight. Oh my God, I can't fight nothing. I'm not built for that. But then I'm like, maybe I can just go to Canada because it's right there. And then I'm like, is that too close? That might be too close. And you see the far right rising in France and Germany and Italy. And then you start to really think to yourself, is there really a way to escape the tendrils of American imperialism? And maybe it's actually safer to be here than it is to leave. Because I don't want to be on the receiving end of the nukes, right? But I also don't want to be in the country that's shooting them. And then, of course, you start thinking, but if I do leave, do they like black people? You know what I mean? So I'm really confused. I
think once you travel and you see how other people live in other countries, you will know that the cost of living is a lot cheaper in most countries than in America. You know, in America, you go to work and you pretty much spend most of your income paying bills and paying off some kind of debt, something that you're paying off, you know. So I feel like most people are burnt out from the lifestyle that they have here, from them being a paycheck away from being on the street, from fear of the unknown, fear of, I don't know, them getting sick and going to the hospital and not having enough money to pay. So I just kind of feel like they feel like their money can go a long way somewhere else than here. I think most people feel like America doesn't serve them anymore. You know, Because don't get me wrong, living in America is one of the greatest country. There's always something that you can do to make money. You know, the American dream still exists. You just have to push harder. You know, like a lot of people are not seeing the American dreams. They think the American dream was sold to them and they're not seeing it. So they choose to go and find, they choose to go somewhere else to live a comfortable life. But I think that if you have a remote job, you can live comfortably outside of America, because most countries, jobs are not really there like that. Even factory jobs, it's not really there like that. And when you do find those jobs, they don't pay as much as what you would get if you was to be in America, because the dollar is a little bit heavier than most countries like Mexico or Thailand or whatever it is that you choose to go and stay. You know, but I think that if you have a plan and you have enough money to move outside of the United States and live outside of the United States, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You know what I mean? Because right now, the way things are going, people are just scared and people feel they'll be safer somewhere else than to be here. And I don't blame anyone that is leaving. But let me know what you think about this story down in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all in my next video.